Warframe is a game with many frames and playstyles, but there's one type that stands above the rest in pure fun factor. Today, we're going to take a look at the two masters of speed and figure out which one is truly the best overall, Gauss or Volt. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Bonk, and let's figure out who the true speed apex predator is. This video is going to consist of 3 distinct sections. The first will be my opinions on these two frames and who I think deserves the gold, giving ample reasoning of course. Then I'm going to talk about the community's opinion based on a poll I put out a few days ago, and show several examples of the community's opinions on why one tops the other. Finally, to conclude the video, I'm putting together all the facts and opinions from myself and the community, and then I'm going to make a final decision on who is the real god of speed. Ew, not that one. Alrighty boys. We're going to begin with my opinions as previously stated, so let's talk Gauss first. I'll be giving him a 1 out of 10 ranking in 4 categories: versatility in missions, aesthetics, ease of use, and power potential. So all in all, Gauss will come out with 4 different 0 out of 10 ratings, then I'll average out his ratings to get his final score, and eventually compare it to the final score of Volt in the next section. Whoever has a higher average will be the winner. Sounds a little confusing maybe, but it will become clear what's going on pretty quick, so don't worry. Also, I want you to keep in mind that both frames talked about in this video will be talked about as if they do not have any helmet ability access. These frames will be compared based on the kits they come with, no fancy build shenanigans, so that the average player will have a good idea as to which one's better without having to farm a whole different frame to make them better. That doesn't mean you can't tell me your OP helmet build in the comments, just saying. Gauss's versatility will be the first ranking to cover. So what does that mean? Well, how good is Gauss when brought into differing missions? Can he handle any node, or does he struggle in some? Well, that's what we're going to answer, so let's go through the mission types and take a peek at how well Gauss does in them. To begin, we got Survival, one of the most popular mission types to run, and Gauss is a legend at it. If you're looking for fun and long endurance survivals, Gauss can do the trick. He's got good survivability potential with his kinetic plating, as well as an AoE that can wipe out groups with his 3. On top of that, of course, having the speed with his 1, and the overall stat buffs to basically your whole kit with his redline. Gauss will pretty much be an unstoppable force in longer mission types like this. He has similar potential in disruption and excavation missions, so I won't go into detail for those. The only common node on the star chart that is an infinite mission type that Gauss isn't great at, or as good at, is defense. He just wasn't made for a defense, as his whole thing is speedrunning through maps and staying in the same area. It just doesn't fit his kit, so he'll lose a little bit of points when looking at that. So how about the other types of nodes? Things like Exterminate and Capture, Gauss once again is an absolute beast, and his abilities complement these game types excellently. Whereas, if you're taking Gauss into spy missions, I'm not really sure I can even help you, man. Just get some help. So, what's left? A good bit. Assassinations, defection, assault, sabotage, all of these Gauss does super well in. There's a few types of game modes that he's just average in though. These include mobile defense, infested salvage, interception, and rescue. He's not bad in these modes, just maybe not the best of the best for sure. I haven't played with Gauss enough in the new Zariman Void type missions just yet to give a competent rating for that, so it will have to be unincluded in this ranking. There's one more type of node that I want to mention. I'm going to throw in open world activities as a type of mission for this little competition, and you'll understand why later. But looking at Gauss, I just wouldn't use him for open world stuff. He's fun to speed through large maps with, but you don't really need that speed when you can just activate your Robo Space Jetpack and fly across the area super quick. And when looking at things like Ido hunts, Gauss is useless. It's just a fact. So he'll lose some more points for open worlds. Oh, and I guess Hijack exists as a game mode, but I'm pretty sure only masochists enjoy Hijack, so I'm not going to put it in the running either. So, all that being said, we finished out our first Gauss ranking here, with me giving Gauss a score of 7 out of 10 for versatility. He's pretty much average or super good in almost anything you want to play him in, so for me this ranking was easily going to be on the higher side. He loses several points though because of the few specific modes where he's almost useless compared to the potential easy wins when using other frames. So, let's head into Gauss's second rating. This time, let's rank his aesthetics. Very important if you ask me, just saying. Gauss looks dope, I'm not gonna deny that. I think he has some nutty potential in looking to create his prime version, and he also accepts different cosmetics very well. Most of the Amphiras I have look dope on him, and almost none of the Syndanas will have an issue of clipping into his model, especially since they'll be flying behind you when you're super speeding through the maps. I want to give his aesthetics a 10 out of 10, but for some reason, those bug things that stick out just throw me off a little. I don't hate them, but I don't know. Like really, I'm not even sure why I'm slightly off-putted, but I am. So for Gauss's second rating, he'll receive a 9 out of 10. This will put his overall score sitting pretty at an 8 out of 10, a very good average, but there's still 2 more rankings for Gauss to receive, so we'll have to see if he can stick with this score as we continue. So why don't we do that, huh? Third ranking type time, boys. Ease of use. If a brain dead new player was to pick up Gauss, would they have a troubled time or a fun one? Short answer, both. I know that sounds confusing, but you gotta take a look at what Gauss is all about. And the thing is, what he's all about is being moving, all of the time, literally constantly. And if you're a new player, you're gonna have some trouble with these big ol' things called walls. I've seen it 100 times. A Gauss that hits the wall more than he actually gets through the doorway, and that's a bit of an issue. But those same people that are hitting walls are usually still having fun. That's the conundrum that Gauss creates. He's fun, but tough to pick up. A player that has some good map knowledge and experience on Gauss, or even experience on a Volt speed build, will have a hell of a time and no wall problems at all. Plus, if I'm being honest here, a lot of players out there that play super casual don't like playing the more complicated frames. And don't get me wrong here, I don't think he's that complicated. I think Gauss is very easy to use if you read his skills. But a lot of people see a frame that needs any type of setup during a mission. Even something simple as building Gauss's redline can turn people off from using him over someone that is incredibly simple. So looking at the facts here, I'm gonna say because of his fun factor just being so big, it cancels out some of the early game problems you could face when learning Gauss. So he's gonna receive a 6 out of 10 for ease of use. This might seem a little on the low side, but I'm being serious when I tell you to look next time you see a lower level player with Gauss and just watch the chaos unfold. This score won't affect his overall much, bringing it to a decimal average a little over 7 out of 10. Gauss is still going strong in the rankings, and with only one section remaining. A section that Gauss is going to fucking crush. Power potential. A ranking Gauss will no doubt be an absolute beast in. Looking at his kit, Gauss not only has an extremely high skill cap, but his power potential is just nuts. With a meme build, you can turn him into a nuke, or with a normal build, you're basically a lightspeed machine gun that shreds everything. And the fact that Gauss is one of the craziest frames for going into Steel Path survivals just shows how well he can do in the worst of conditions. With the right build, your Gauss will pretty much be unstoppable, with there not being a single type of enemy you can't insta-shred. The only point I'll be taking off in this section will be because of the fact that Gauss's power is partially linked to what gun he's using. As in, like, if your weapon is Garbo, your Gauss's power will suffer extremely. Although, if you're not going into something endgame like Steel Path, it does not matter much at all what your weapon is. I mean, normal mission types, your redline buff will be enough of a buff to any weapon to give it the power it needs to destroy. So that being said, Gauss's final ranking in this 4th section is going to be a 9 out of 10. A very good ranking once again. Gauss comes out with an overall ranking of 7.7 out of 10. So that is his final score, 7.7 out of 10. A very respectable number, and one Gauss for sure deserves, if not an even higher one. So let's go check out his speedy opponent, one filled to the brim with pure lightning and power. It's Volt time, boys. So, Volt. We're going to once again do the exact same ranking system with these 4 sections and averaging them out. If Volt's average comes out higher than Gauss's 7.7, then he'll be the winner. Lower than Gauss's, Gauss takes home the title. Real quick, before we start with the Volt rankings, please head down below and leave a like, or possibly even sub, would be super appreciated. Also make a prediction on who you think's going to be the winner now that you've seen how the ranking works. Don't cheat though, be a good sport and try to guess. Also be sure to tell me who you think is personally stronger and why. The last thing before Volt, I promise. Check out my community Discord in the description and come hang out. Alright, I already hear people clicking off. Let's talk big boy Volt. Volt is a very widely owned frame compared to Gauss because of how easy it is to get him. But that doesn't just make him better. So how about we start giving him some rankings, beginning with his score for versatility in missions. Volt is nuts at pretty much every type of mission you can think of, with a small bit of exceptions. Volt isn't as OP for going for very prolonged runs in survival, excavation, defense, and disruption, as well as defection and interception. In almost all of these missions, Volt will begin being an absolute powerhouse, and very capable, but the hard truth is, Volt isn't great when the enemies start getting into very high levels. Especially in Steel Path, Volt begins to struggle to survive. It's not that he's useless, but if you're going for hecka long runs in infinite mission nodes, Gauss is definitely a safer pick. But what about the other modes? Well, Extermination, Assault, Capture, Hijack, Infested Salvage, Mobile Defense, Rescue, and Sabotage, Volt wrecks. Of course, he's good in these shorter blast down enemy mission types, but you gotta keep in mind, Gauss also does very well in most of these mission types, so it won't give Volt much of a boost in terms of score over Gauss. Volt is kinda meh in Assassinations, as he doesn't have a crazy damage ability or anything, and in Spy, just like Gauss, if you're using Volt, then you need to take some time and think about what you're doing. Like, dude, seriously? But the thing is, that grabs Volt some mega points compared to Gauss, is his usefulness in open world activities. To be more specific, he is a staple pick for Eidolons. Okay, well, maybe not as much as he used to be because of the Matter-Eye changes, but nonetheless, Volt is very good for Eidos, and your team probably won't get mad if you end up playing him there. But I'm not gonna lie, expect your team for Eidos to get mad at you anyway. For some reason, Eidolon hunters are in some kind of pure self-hatred and sweat bubble. So, all that being said, Volt is slightly worse than Gauss in never-ending missions, and just about the same for other types. But he also is useful for Eidos, whereas Gauss is a no-go ever for Eidos, at least in my opinion. Like, I don't see a world where you'd want a Gauss on your team over a Volt, or in general when you're doing Eidolon hunts. Now, if you think back, Gauss was given a 7 out of 10 for his versatility score, and I'm gonna have to plot Volt down at a 6.5 out of 10. Purely because of the slightly worse potential, in my opinion of course, in the endless missions, which are a huge part of Warframe's gameplay. So how about we head over to the looks and aesthetic score for our big boy Volt. Maybe bring him back up above Gauss, we'll have to see. I want to make myself perfectly clear when it comes to the aesthetics section. It is obviously pure opinion more than the other sections even. Fashion is the most personal preference aspect of Warframe, so if you disagree, it's all good. That out of the way, I think Volt looks meh, but luckily Volt has a Prime variant which I'll also be taking into account when looking at his looks. To start with, what I like about Volt, or Volt Prime's looks, is the fact that the Tesla coil things on his arms and all over his body or whatever, they're really cool. I think they match the vibe he's going for really well, and like his whole kit and everything about who he is. And as well as that, I like that they went for like a sleek look just like Gauss to show that he's all about being quick. He's not like a tank, he's not meant to be beefy, he's meant to be dodging. So, it's pretty cool. But now I'm going to tell you why I'm not sure about this design. I think Volt's head looks funky as hell. That's it bad-wise. I just think his head looks super stupid, and I'm not even sure if the Prime one makes it any better. It just kind of looks like trash on both. Luckily, head skins are craftable from BPs and Nightwave, so I'm able to change my Volt's look for basically free. But right now, we're comparing base models of these two, so the head has to stay dumb, and he's gonna lose some points for that. So overall, I'm gonna give Volt a 7 out of 10 for fashion. His body looks sick and has a matching aesthetic to his whole kit and everything, which is, you know, nice. But the most prominent part of your look is your head, in my opinion, and the thing that you're looking at the most when you're looking at other players. And it's so ugly. It's just gonna lose a chunk of points for that. I'm sorry if you like Volt's head and everything, but like, just, it does not work for me. So, how easy is Volt to pick up? Let's move on to the next one. Okay, Volt's ease of use. If you want the short answer, he's extremely easy to pick up and learn, and I think that was an obvious thing to predict, because DE literally chose him as the frame that the newest of the new players will use. And I can tell you from my personal experience of both choosing Volt as my starter, and a good bit of my friends that also play choosing Volt as their starter, that Volt is probably one of the easiest frames to learn in the game. Like 1, lightning hand, 2, speed button, 3, shield you can put down and pick up and you shoot through it. And finally his 4 is big boom boom self-destruct where you just kill everything around you. So yeah, no fancy learning like with Gauss. Even, I mean, that's a stretch, fancy learning. Gauss is also pretty simple, just not anywhere near as simple as Volt. And for that simple fact, he's this easy to learn, he's gonna get a very solid 9 out of 10 for his ease of use. The only reason I don't want to give Volt a 10 out of 10 is because it isn't a perfect frame. You're not going to be able to learn him instantly as you pick him up, because new players may not understand the intricacies of what his shield actually does until they've played him for a little bit. Alright, Volt's final ranking. What's he looking like power potential wise? Well, it's pretty good, but if I'm being honest, it's not as much pure power that Gauss is capable of. So let's look into why. The thing is, Volt is a glass cannon. Per se, kinda. He's pretty powerful and a great team player compared to Gauss, but if you're looking to do Steel Path mega long runs, don't pick Volt. I would recommend Gauss 100% for that kind of thing, but contrary to that, Volt does have a bunch of crazy builds that can make him uber good and super fun, like a melee speed build or an OP nuke build that carries your whole team in ESO for the entire thing. So yes, if you want to know if Volt has potential, that's the answer, 100% yes. But we're here to compare these two frames, and if I'm being objective, when doing that, Gauss is just nuttier at full potential. So with Gauss coming into power potential with a 9 out of 10, I'm gonna have to put Volt slightly lower at an 8 out of 10. So what's his overall ranking? Well, taking into account all 4 scores, Volt has gained so far. He comes out with an overall of 7.6 out of 10. Yeah, that was hella close. But Gauss beats Volt by a measly 0.1 and takes the title of Speed Apex Predator. At least for my part of this video and my opinions and rankings on these frames. Now we're going to talk about what the community thinks and some of their reasons why they cast the vote they did. This right here is the poll's final numbers as of me editing this video, and I doubt it will change at all, or at least enough to make a difference in what I'm talking about. And as you can see, my opinion has been overruled. The community believes Volt deserves that title, so let's look at some Volt supporters' opinions on why they think it's him. I'm not going to show the commenters' names, by the way, and please don't be an ass to these people if you disagree. First, we got a comment that points out Volt having more control in tight spaces, and with many tile sets out there with these tight spaces, Volt just has the upper hand. A valid point to make, but also one that comes with a little of lack of experience with Gauss. As previously stated in my ease of use section on him, this may be a problem for some players, but there are also those that never hit walls with Gauss and have mastered his movement potential. So what else do we got here? This person just says Volt is better as an overall frame compared to Gauss, and that was it for what he wanted to say about Volt. And I'm pretty surprised here. With all the Volt votes, we got barely any reasoning as to why he should be the winner. Those are pretty much the only 2 comments that were pro Volt. So how about we see the other side's opinions? Why don't we look at an equal amount of Gauss things? Like, let's see what Gauss had going for him. Well, to start, we have a comment stating that a specific build on Gauss can do way better in Steel Path missions because of his survivability and potential armor strip. Super good points, but when talking specific build, it gets a little more complicated to compare the two objectively. Nonetheless, a very good point for the Gauss side of the room. Next, we got a comment stating that Volt and Gauss are non-similar enough to compare, in his opinion, besides the fact that they're speedy, and Gauss wins it when it comes to that, being faster, I guess. And yeah, I guess. I think it's fun to compare them though. Next up, we got someone who says Gauss is the best, and Volt can only do one thing that Gauss cannot. That being group speed for your team. And he also says Volt has been redundant for Eidolon since the Matter-Eye rework. I'm gonna partially agree with this. I think it's important to take into account when looking at Volt and Eidolon hunting that not everyone is going to be leveling up their Matter-Eye, or even will get the Matter-Eye levels needed for the power to replace Volt's usefulness. Although yes, with Matter-Eye, Volt does become less useful, you gotta think that not every player wants to be a Matter-Eye gamer, and instead just wants to have a Volt with an Eido build sitting around for when it's needed. Finally, the last comment I want to show is a true big brain that decided to comment Titania on my Gauss v Volt post. And I gotta say, sure man, Titania is the winner, best frame, top tier. Well, that's it for the community's choice on who won. It's Titania won. And they've chosen Volt over Gauss with very little explanation, but that's alright. It's their opinion. Volt came out as the winner, and that's why my personal opinions were in this video as well, so that you could get info on these guys and help you come to your very own conclusion, which I hope you'll put in the comments, by the way. So, were you right? Did you predict the winner? Well, I guess everybody did, since they both won when looking at different perspectives. My final decision is as follows. I still believe Gauss edges out Volt and takes the cake, but it's all up in the air, relying on who is behind the wheel on these frames. Both can be good, both can be incredible in fact, but Gauss can be better, especially if you're heading into endgame content. So, that being said, please head on down to that like button and maybe give it a tap, as well as subbing. Would be super appreciated, everyone. Thank you for watching. Once again, Discord for the channels in the description, as well as my Twitter, and I hope you guys all enjoyed. Keep having fun in Warframe, and good night.